Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Shake Sales. I'm your host, Maggie Blume, the sales evangelist at Mailshake. And today we have a very special guest, Marcus Chan. He's the founder at Venli Consulting and author of Six Figure Sales Secrets. The reason why this conversation sparked is I actually saw a LinkedIn carousel post, which are super hot right now, from Marcus talking about an exceptional month he had in 2023 where he generated over 500,000 in revenue and booked 69 meetings in just 1 month with just one of his SDRs. So Marcus, super excited to dive into this today. Do you mind taking some time to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Marcus Chan. First off, I'm excited to be here. We're going to have some fun talking about sales and jamming out today. And I work directly with B2B sales professionals to help them sell and earn additional 50 to 100K more every single year. So I'm pumped to be here. Hopefully I'll share some value with the audience here that they can take and apply for their own teams and themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give context to everyone out there, Marcus and his team, this isn't just 1 month. He told me before we started recording here that this is a pretty consistent theme for his team. And it's all comes down to a process that he has and the coaching that he puts onto his team. So they just wanted to share about this 1 month because, we always want people from LinkedIn and telling people about it just to see, what comes from it. So awesome. So the results that you got were clearly amazing for that specific month. Do you mind breaking down, what your team did to do this?
Absolutely. And I think what's important to understand is, whenever I think about, creating systematic results, it's important to understand that there's a system, right? And each piece is really important. And I imagine it's kind of like when you have a great recipe. Mm-hmm. Each of the pieces are really, really critical to have, and they make it really great. If you're missing one or two of these pieces, eventually if you have too many missing pieces, that recipe at the end of the day will not be that good, right? Yeah. And that's important to understand. And when I really break it down, it really breaks down to really two core components, with each has subcomponents. So the first piece is, number one, it's the people. So first off, having the right people on your team is absolutely vital, right? Because you can have majority ingredients, but if you're missing the right people, that's not going to be good. So having hungry, coachable people that are willing to execute and take action is really important. So that's probably the first piece. So as a sales leader, it's hiring, training, and bringing the right people in. That's one key component that helps with the success of the execution of this. The second piece are going to be the systems and processes you have in place, right? And there's many sub pieces and processes in place that help tee it up. So for example, I think one of the most important things is providing the tools to win for your team. So imagine when you go back to the people perspective, when I hire someone new, it's not just hey, here's some product knowledge and good luck and try to go sell. So it's a very specific step-by-step process broken down into modules. It's so broken down. Well, there's live sales calls and me running the sales calls broken down step by step. Every part of the process from start to close is documented and filmed and recorded modules. So when a new rep starts and they go through this onboarding, they're able to get indoctrinated very quickly into what needs to be done. And that's everything from framework, scripts, everything. So that's number one. So having that piece, okay? In addition to that, it's not just having them watch it and good luck. It's also literally role-playing and coaching and guide them and helping them improve across the board. So having that ongoing coaching system is really, really important. So for example, with my SDR, we typically jump on a call at least 3 times a week. 3 times a week, we're jumping on a call together where we're either one-to-one or I'm role-playing or I'm doing call review coaching with him. Really, really important because we could talk theory all day long, but actually working and being invested into his development helps him not just learn faster, but also improve faster, but also keeps his skills really, really sharp. So that's that's a really, really key piece, is just making sure that you're constantly helping the people part grow, right?
Yeah.
In addition to that, we do have it pretty systemized with hyper-targeted leads. So we have, because of how it's set up, because I'm the founder, I'm fortunate, I can control the marketing. I can control a lot of stuff as well because I'm the founder. So I also get the luxury and also, I'd say the stress, if you will, of building the marketing machine.
It's a lot.
So, right. So even the example for January, in January alone, we generate 475 inbound leads, right? Hyper-targeted, because of the marketing system we put in place. This didn't happen overnight. This is just, over time it compounded, right? Just because of, LinkedIn and YouTube and everything else that we're doing. So it's compounded over time. But consistently, even in the month of February, short month, we end up still doing 400 plus leads. Book calls, a little bit, I think we booked just over 50 calls for the month. A little bit lighter, but still not bad as well. So you kind of see you kind of see like this trajectory, but having a really good system of hyper-targeted leads where my SDR now can work off those inbound leads. Really, really important. Now, these aren't like inbound leads to book a call. These are just like, they're interested in as a very specific resource. So we have phone numbers, emails, etc., that we can actually outbound call them and nurture them. So having that is really important. But that means the marketing has to be so nails that when they're bringing people into the system, into our marketing system, they have very specific pain points and issues. So that's really, really critical. So it's not just some random like, oh, here's a cheat sheet about whatever. It's like, it's very specific. Do you have this pain point? Do you want this thing? So when they go after it, then when the calls are, they're much easier, right? We also, as part of that as well, is like we also work really closely as a team. So like, it's not just like, it's like if I hear if the leads aren't good, whatever, I'm looking to the data. I'm seeing what's going on. My SDR is talking to the AE to talk about the leads and what's going on, right? Because sometimes the meetings are not as good as we want them to be, and that's okay. But as long as we have a tight feedback loop, that really, 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 really helps, right? On top of that as well, it's like my SDR is not just one channel. It's not just like calls only. Like we'll call, we'll text, we'll send video messages, we'll do LinkedIn, like outbound messages. So we're hitting multiple. Exactly. So we're hitting multiple channels as well, and that really, really is really key. And then I'll say probably one of the last pieces that is also key too, as part of this bullet point, is like constantly working to improve self-awareness. Okay. So it's not like every single day, he's booking meetings. There's good days and bad days, right? Just like in every salesperson's life. But the way you kind of push through that is if you have a growth mindset, but you have to have systems in place to constantly grow. So for example, and some leaders aren't going to like this, some reps are going to like this, but I have my team do a daily recap every single day in a Slack channel. And all the recap, like they're going to recap like what calls they had. I don't even care about how many calls they made. I mean, we average less than 10 calls a day. I don't care about the number of calls. Right? I care about the quality of calls. So every single day, my SDR and my AE will submit into a Slack channel for the daily summary, and they'll share like how the calls went, the live calls they had, like what they learned, what went well, what they could improve on. They'll share what they're grateful for. They'll share what they're excited about as well. So this way, they're reflecting every single day on how to improve. So when they start thinking this way, even if, let's just say, for example, they didn't get a desired result, they didn't close any business, they didn't book any meetings, doesn't matter. They just didn't get the outputs they were hoping for, or the outcomes they're hoping for. But they're able to reflect back and say, well, when I got hit with this objection, I'm not interested. Because now even though I didn't overcome it, I was able to maintain composure and confidence. That's progress. So that type of stuff is really key. But those are a few things that we've done. But when you kind of add it all together, this is what leads to just consistent growth, because this is how we're doing consistently, right? It's like a machine that we constantly are feeding and oiling and make sure it runs really, really smoothly. Some are a little higher, some are lower, but we'll consistently be booking 50 plus meetings every single month because of this.
That's amazing. And I think the biggest thing that you said was the process part of everything, because I mean, there's even times where I've joined teams, and I don't blame the leader for this, I don't blame anyone else for that, but where we're like writing the process together and rewriting it. And it's like, I've talked with a lot of other sales teams like that, because I sell to other sales leaders too. And it's like, they don't even have that process written out to begin with. And that's something they don't spend the time doing. And it was funny, I was just talking with Rex Biberston the other day. He writes this book, Outbound, No Fluff, Outbound Sales. But we talked about how that is such a big problem, especially in sales. Obviously, process sounds great for any job that you're doing, but in sales, when things are super emotional, like you just talked, for example, there's going to be a day where one of your reps doesn't book any meetings, but at least they kept composure, or at least they did all of these other things that sticks to that process that works, that gets you those results each month. And it's like, it seems so simple, Marcus, but like, you've probably run into a lot of teams that don't have processes like this set up, right?
Oh, 100%. So before I started my business, I was part of teams like that. right?
Yeah.
Where we were like, we would make decisions based off emotions.
Yeah.
Which is, the emotions are tell you one part of the story, they tell you some like gut feeling, but I like to have data that backs it up. And when you have data that backs it up, it allows you to make better decisions. So like when we see hot, good or low trends, we have data to kind of look at, like, okay, that's interesting. Let's also look objectively and see what else is there to actually improve, right? So for example, I take a look and I'll say January, we definitely had more meetings than usual, but also, I also I sent a couple more marketing emails out, right, to our newsletter.
Yeah.
So that impacts it, right? Because then they get more nurtured, right? I took a look at some of the content. I was like, I think we had some banger content as well that really helped too. Like, so you take a look at like some of these things that make it, that kind of help juice it. It's like, how can we repeat success? But I think the mistake a lot of leaders make, generally speaking, is they put the entire weight onto the reps' shoulders. And I'm not saying we need to absolve reps from doing their job, because they have to obviously show up and do it, but how can we make their job easier? Yeah. How can we set them up to win? Like, how can we provide them the tools and resources to be most likely to be successful? And as long as they show up and just try their hardest and try to improve, they'll eventually get better over time. But I think a lot of times we as leaders, we don't set them up for success, and then we wonder why we don't have results.
Yeah, and I guess like what's something for leaders listening to this, like what's something they can do to help set, like how do they start that formation of setting the reps up for success, not only in that role and what the rep is doing, but then also for the rep to see success in their own, measures, or like how they view themselves too.
So I think the first piece is like, because it may seem a little bit overwhelming when you kind of hear like, wow, there's so many systems in place. And if let's just say you're like an SDR manager, or BDR manager, and you're like, I don't control marketing or any of that other stuff. Well, start small, right? Start with what can you control. So, for example, even helping improve self-awareness as a sales professional is really important. So, for example, you could easily set into place, every day in one Slack channel, everyone just submits one Slack saying what's one win they had for the day. Doesn't matter how big or how small. Does not matter. One win for the day, or one learning for the day.
Yeah.
So that way you start training them to think about, how do I see what's the opportunity? Because what happens, a lot of time what happens for human nature is when we don't have the day we want, or we don't have the result we want, we start subconsciously asking ourselves really bad questions. So it's questions like, what's wrong with me? Why is sales so hard? Why is this recession really impacting me? Why are prospects jerks? Why are they ghosting me? And of course, because your brain is smart, it responds back, well, because of the recession, because you're not good at your job, because you suck, because whatever. And now you're like this negative spiral. So before you know it, your brain's spiraling down this negative path. So then you want to get away from that. So you go for a dopamine hit. You grab your phone, you start flipping through TikTok. You go and you have an extra drink at dinner or more, right? You start finding ways to try to offset the pain. So if you could train your brain to ask more positive questions, such as, well, what can I learn from today? What was the one thing great about today? That could really help. Now, as a sales professional, it's hard when you're stuck in the weeds. It's hard to do that, right? Unless you really train yourself. But as a leader, you can help put a process in place, a mini system like that, where every evening before you wrap your day up, one win, one learning, something like that. And it starts training them. That's probably the first piece. That's really easy to do. The second thing you can do, if you're not doing this as a leader, is like set up one-on-ones with your reps every week. Sounds crazy, but like just have a set time for even 30 minutes once a week to sit down with your rep on Zoom, Teams, whatever, and just see how they're doing. Uncover obstacles, remove obstacles, and set clear action items to work together. By somebody doing that consistently, they'll get getting better. Number 3, do call recordings, or do call reviews. Like literally, just as a team, huddle the team, start doing it. Just start doing it, right? And some leaders out there be like, oh, I don't have time. I got a lot of reps. I totally get that. At one point, I had 20 direct reps reporting to me, and I still did this, right? Yeah. And on top of that, I was actually in the field with them in appointments, live, driving around. So it's possible. It's not easy, but it's investments into your team now that'll pay long-term dividends.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the one thing I hear from a lot of people now are, that they find that their one-on-ones with their managers or their call reviews are pointless. Like not pointless, but the way that they're run, or they don't like the way they're run. So like, what's like a couple tips to running like an effective call review or one-on-one?
So I think first off, you have to have a process for even that. It sounds crazy. I know it's crazy. So
Marcus is a process guy.
I know. It's like, well, it's a repeatable system, right? You repeat success. It's a recipe. So, for example, like, I think first off, like, if you think about kind of a structure of a one-on-one. So first off, it's usually a little bit of like kind of normal rapport. You have to kind of build them up as a leader. You can't be like, all right, cool, let's go through your numbers. Like that's very transactional. You want to be transformational. Just first off, it's just some normal rapport. That's kind of the first piece. Then I personally like to go over any action items from the last week. So if in the one-on-one you set clear action items that had to occur that following week to help them improve something, you want to go over that first. So let's say, for example, if one of the action items was to practice 5 times in the morning your cold call opener, just to kind of get the vocals warmed up for the first calls. Hey, like Marcus, how did that go? How did warm me up in the morning go last week? And just talk about it. Like, really simple. Nothing crazy, right? Just making sure that if I didn't get it done, but hey, help me understand what happened. Oh, I got really busy, blah blah. If there's excuses, then you might have to break some beliefs, right? So you might have to do some mental belief breaking, like, hey, what was it exactly? And kind of get them to decide that they should do whatever needs to be done. And then you might go over some of like where they stand in the numbers. I think it's important, like where do they stand and where do they want to go. And by the way, I don't like quotas, right? I disagree with quotas. Quotas are made up numbers, right? They're made up numbers by other people. So you should never lead a rep to a quota. Lead them to their personal goals. They're going to be much more tied to that. So, for example, let's say if it's an SDR, you need to book 5 meetings a week, or if it's an A, you need to close $100K a month. Okay, that's lame.
Yeah.
Versus, hey, like, how are we progressing towards paying for your wedding in cash? Interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, how are we working towards vacation in the Cayman Islands you want to go on? Very different now, right? So you lead them towards where they want to go. So you start going through their numbers and how they are progressing towards those goals. And then what you need to do next, right? And then uncover any obstacles that might be in the way, right? And then, of course, set clear actions for what happens next. Like, if they can't do something, why? You want to find out why. The mistake I think a lot of leaders make is they don't think in why.
Yeah. And I think that's the important part of it, and what you do super well from hearing you talk and just like seeing what you post out there on LinkedIn, Marcus, is being transformational and figuring out that why in your rep, because like it's so funny how sales can relate to a lot of different things. I was just talking with someone earlier about how it relates to recruiting, but then also like figuring out someone's why, just like you need kind of like a lead's why, or what their pain is that they're trying to, or the goal that they're trying to achieve. It's like,
that's right.
Okay, do the same exact thing with your reps as a leader in sales and look at the results that you're looking at. And I think that's kind of the ability to get like on a personal level with them and just talk about it, because that's how you're going to motivate someone in a role, sitting at home, remote, making cold calls or reaching out to people, especially SDRs, because we've all been in that seat before where having quotas is really not that motivating.
It's not motivating at all.
No.
That's why one of my favorite books, leadership books out there, is called Carrots and Sticks Don't Work by Paul Marciano. And it talks a lot about that. Like, no one's like, I'm waking up and hit quota today. No, nobody cares about that, right?
Yeah, no.
It might be, hey, I want to wake up, I just want to do the best job possible to show an example, to be an example for my young kids. All right. That's much more motivating.
Yeah.
Right? Or I want to send my kids to private school. Okay, cool. Then you have a different motivation, right? Or you want to take care of your sick family, or you want to retire your parents, or maybe you want to get engaged or whatever, right? So there's things you want to uncover why, and as a leader, your job is to uncover the true motivation, right? What's intrinsic, what's deep, right? Which goes actually into hiring as well, because when you hire, you want to uncover people with the right intrinsic motivation. That's really important. Like, people with the right core values and beliefs is so absolutely vital, because that'll drive them much further than saying they're money motivated.
Yeah, exactly. And then just as a progression of, let's say you close a deal, you have a customer, you have goals that they're going to hit, that customer success helps them with. It's the same thing when you're applying and recruiting someone for a role is that they're going to have goals in mind of like, hey, I want to be a manager by X time. What are you going to do to get me there? If I'm going to also give back to you too. So it's like, it's funny how the world works, and sales can be related to a lot of it. But Marcus, this was awesome hearing you talk today about your process, how you've had an amazing month and amazing months in general, multiple. And thanks so much for going through that process, keyword process, which is behind everything. But Marcus, where can people find you?
Well, first off, Maggie, thank you so much. My absolute pleasure to chat with you about this. You can find me on LinkedIn, and if you want to grab a copy of my Wall Street Journal best-selling sales book, you can head to venli.co/book to get a free copy there.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Marcus, and thank you everyone for watching another episode of Shake Sales. We'll catch you next time. Bye.
Thanks for having me on.